guys. My name is Adam Cohen-Aslatei. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called SMORE, which stands for Something More. We are the world's first anti-superficial relationship app, and I'm so excited to be here today to talk to you about why the next revolution in online dating is much less superficial. Quick background on myself. I've been in the online dating industry for over 10 years. I actually built my first dating website as a grad student at Harvard, and then spent over 5 years working for the Meet Group with Jeff. I also spent time running Chappie, which is Bumble's gay dating app, and then also spent time consulting in the industry for companies like the Spark Network. So I've been around the block just a bit. So let's get into it. 95% of all dating apps focus on image first. So we live in a very image-centric world, and I think the industry really changed over 8.5 years ago when Tinder launched the swipe. The swipe essentially is the concept of hot or not brought into the dating world. Now, while it's been quite fun to use, and we understand how sticky the UX and UI is and the product works and it's fun, it actually doesn't necessarily lead people into mass relationships. There are millions of people who have been in relationships because of them, still grossly inefficient. We've gone to a very superficial approach to dating over the last 8 years with the introduction of the iPhone, with the introduction of Android phones as well. But a lot of things are just about to change, and I'm sure some of you already noticed the changes taking place in our industry. But let's focus on what went wrong first, and then let's try to fix it. So let's break down the house. Here we go. Focusing on image first has led to and contributed to some seriously negative consequences in our industry. For example, you have the hypersexualization of images on an app. So women and men also feel now compelled to put scantily clad images of themselves on apps. Why? Because they know how to game the system. It literally is a game. The sexier you are, statistically speaking, the more swipes in favor you have of yourself. But what that leads to, and what that has contributed to in the world, is a third of women now say that they've been sexually harassed by someone that they've met on a dating app. So we as a society are hypersexualizing this concept, and it's actually led to some very negative consequences. People are also not authentic. We as an industry talk about authenticity all the time, but 51% of people say they lie on their profiles. Women lie mostly about their body weight and their weight and their body type, and men are lying about their careers and their income. Also, people are overly airbrushed. 38% of people admit to airbrushing photos. 50% of people admit to using old photos. And there's a big chunk of users, 43 to 28% of people, admit that they've been catfished on dating apps. Now, we can definitely do better than that. Plus, other negative consequences that have happened because of the prevalence of casual dating and swiping apps, in part, has been led to the decrease in self-esteem that people feel. Again, we're being judged just based on a headshot. People are starting conversations and ending conversations very quickly. And we feel a sense of validation when we get a swipe on us. We have an increase in depression, again, with millennials, with Gen Zers, and those who use dating apps, and also an increase in anxiety. Now, what else is an issue? I hate to paint a negative picture, but 50% of online daters say that they report having bad experiences on dating apps. And by the way, almost 2/3 or over 2/3 of people say dating apps actually make it harder to fall in love. We've heard from many of the speakers today about the concept of selection, right? When you go to a buffet and you want to eat everything, I do this in Vegas, right? I literally put everything on the plate and it does not taste good together, but my eyes are huge and I want to eat everything. Well, it actually doesn't lead to better outcomes. It leads to far worse outcomes. And a third of people that use swiping-based apps never go on a single date. So essentially, they're using dating apps as softcore porn, which is not the purpose of a dating app. But let's be honest, swiping may be fun, and we've all done it before. It is addictive, it's exciting, and it's a fun technology, but it is grossly inefficient when it comes to how people are matching and actually ending up in relationships. If you take the typical man using a top-tier casual swiping app, it takes the man 1,500 swipes in order to land a single date. So for the man, 1,500 swipes translates into about 150 matches, and he needs 150 matches to land a single date, and a single date lasts for 1.8 hours. Guys, as an industry, we can all do better. We have been able to bring millions of users together, millions of love seekers together. We've had millions of romances, millions of marriages, but we can do much, much better and tackle the problem head on. Also, the industry is shifting quite quickly, and this is the way it's shifting in. So user behavior has changed quite dramatically over the last 8 years since the emergence of Tinder. Relationships now people are looking for more long-term relationships than casual encounters. This began to change in 2018, and now long-term relationships are what people are looking for first and foremost on dating apps. If you look at the data behind why, there's a few reasons why this may be the case. Firstly, 50% of all millennials are single, completely single, and the oldest millennials are turning 40 in 2020. So they've spent 8 years swiping and they are now hopelessly single. Also, Gen Zers are more inclined to want to be in a relationship than millennials were at the same time, at the same age in their own life. And also the majority of users on Bumble and Tinder, which are two of the most popular casual encounter apps, the majority of those users even say, hey, I actually want something more. I want more than a casual encounter. Now, COVID has magnified this issue that we talk about. Why? Because when you're just dating a million people, there's an infinite inventory. You can go on a date every single night. When you're in COVID and you're under quarantine, you start to reflect on the things that you don't have. You may have an amazing apartment, you may have a great job, you may have a great set of friends, but you are home alone. So it starts to have people reflect on what they've been doing incorrectly and maybe helping to try and change their behaviors. And we're starting to see this happen in the dating world. In fact, there's been a huge increase in dating app usage over the last 4 to 5 months, especially with relationship-focused apps. Very important to point that out. Now, so people are saying that they actually want to be in longer-term relationships as opposed to casual relationships, then why are we still swiping? Literally, the antithesis of a relationship app is judging a book by its cover, right? But this continues to be the #1 mechanic in our industry. That is until now. This is going out the window and is being replaced. And let me tell you what it's being replaced with. So firstly, the average person makes a swiping decision in under 3 seconds. There is no way that you could know if a headshot, if that person is going to be compatible with you just based on the way that they look. And in fact, most people aren't reading bios. People tend to read bios of profiles when they're unsure if the person is hot enough. Then if it's a maybe, then I'm going to look through the bio a little bit more. And that's where the whole industry is about to change. The new normal is this anti-superficial dating approach. Now, some of you may have heard of anti-superficial dating or less superficial dating, but maybe don't exactly know what it is. So the concept of anti-superficial dating is really about getting to know a person before deciding if you like them and before you see them. So it's an intentional relationship approach where you're, again, not filtering someone just based on the way that they look. And why is this important? Why? Because in 2020, there's a very large group of users, and we've mentioned the data previous to now, that are using airbrushed photos, they are using outdated photos, or they're using photos that are simply not of themselves. So the experience is one that is not that pleasant. And so to get beyond there, to actually solve the challenge of getting people into relationships requires a different way of thinking. And that is the anti-superficial approach. Now, before we get into the anti-superficial approach, let's talk about some things that we as an industry need to change before we get there. First, there are some very popular premium features on dating apps, mostly on swiping apps, which really does prove the fact that people are making decisions based on little more than a selfie, based on little more than a headshot. For example, this concept of a backtrack or a rewind. Many apps have it. It literally proves that I'm swiping by people so quickly and judging people so quickly based on a headshot, but wait, I think they're still hot, let me go back. This is one of the most popular premium features. It's really not designed to get people into relationships. Until we change our user behavior, we're not going to be in relationships because we were taught to, by apps, judge people simply based on a headshot, first and foremost, the #1 screener. Other things that we need to do as an industry to get past the superficiality of dating apps is really think about the concept of race filtering. So race filtering is something that exists on many apps, including many in the Match group. And the way that most people use race filtering is to filter in for white men and for white women. Now, What happens then is the races that get the least amount of exposure on dating apps are Black women and Asian men. So what happens is they have less enjoyment on the app because they have less exposure on the app, less activity on the app, and they leave the app. But what it means for society is we have less experiences with different ethnicities together. So our understanding of those ethnicities is significantly diminished. My thought and my wish for the industry is to get rid of this concept of having ethnic or race filtering and let people connect on something more. Let people have that magical conversation that you may never realize that you will end up with an Asian man or an African-American woman because you never really gave them a chance. And now this magic is able to actually happen. So in our industry, there's been a massive shift in user behavior, as mentioned, taking place. First of all, we've been swiping for over 8 years. So swiping is really fun. It is quite engaging, but now there's some kind of fatigue, right? What else? What is next? There's also been a bit of a backlash over vanity metrics. Many of the large social media sites, and including dating sites as well, don't show you the publicly available likes on someone's profile because it leads to anxiety, feelings of negativity and depression, etc. And then of course, we've been demoralized by the photos that we see. But the less superficial approach to dating is actually quite interesting because what it means is someone's connecting on more than a pretty face, on more than a headshot. What that does is that gets you away from the top of the funnel, which is just swiping past photos, into conversations much quicker. And it's gamified, right? It still feels like a fun, exciting way to get to know someone else in a very novel way. And there's a ton of examples of apps that are doing this today. And we're going to get into some examples in a few minutes. Also, the less superficial approach to dating is quite interesting because functionally, it gets you into a conversation faster. And if the reason for you to use a dating app is to be in a relationship, then of course you need to be in conversations quicker in order to get that done. Well, in order to do that, you can't be judging a person based on a headshot. And finally, it is literally the greatest equalizer. When you get rid of the concept of racial filters in an app, what you end up doing is you become vulnerable. You suspend your judgment in favor of a conversation. And that conversation may be with someone who you never in a million years imagined that you would be with. And because you gave that person a shot at love, pun intended, you're able to have new connections that can form today that never were able to form in the past because we don't have these concepts of race filtering. So when you think about the anti-superficial approach, I actually want to give you some concrete examples so you know what I'm talking about. It is not pie in the sky, but it is also not as simple to understand as a swiping mechanism because there's different ways in which apps use the concept of being anti-superficial. So one of the apps that I like actually is called Friended. So they're an app that is 50% about friends and 50% about romantic relationships. And you can see a graphic of what that app looks like on the right-hand side here. Essentially, you are connecting with someone over a statement about themselves or the way that they're answering a question. And you can see that their headshot is significantly minimized in this graphic. There's another app that I love that's called Lex. It's a lesbian dating app. And the way their approach to relationships is people are creating classified ads. So we'll harken back to the days before dating apps and people writing romantic notes in newspapers or ads in newspapers for love. So on Lex, you're able to create this amazing note. And if someone connects with that person through that note and clicks on the ad, then they're able to see what the photo looks like. Profoundly, another amazing example. They are one of the fastest growing dating apps in India. They're now available in the US. It's actually a chatbot and it lives on Facebook and also the app called Line. And what it does is it's a chatbot that facilitates the conversation between two people that cannot see each other. And the chatbot decides at what point to reveal photos of the other person. And one other quick example that I'll mention here is Muzzmatch. Muzzmatch is one of the most popular, or probably the most popular Muslim-focused dating app in the world. They also have a swiping mechanic, but they let women blur themselves out. And the woman decides at what point they want to be revealed to the man, so that the beginning of their relationship really focuses on what do we have in common? Who are we? What are our values? And what do we want to get out of a marriage, essentially? So these are all different anti-superficial's approach to dating. Now, this is not just a niche concept. The concept of anti-superficial dating, I guarantee you in 2 years, you will see in every major dating app in the US. Here are a couple examples of mainstream dating apps that are already implementing it. So the Meet Group is mentioned today by Jeff. They have the product called Blind Date, where two people get to have this conversation without seeing each other. Now, in the case of the Meet Group, it's a live streaming event where you can actually watch this taking place, which is quite fun and exciting. But the two people really do want to go on a date with each other. And what happens when you have this concept of blurred dating, the data actually suggests that blurred dating leads to much longer conversations and more a sense of a connection because of the intrigue of not seeing that person. Apps like Say Hello, which I think is also represented here today by Zachary, he also has a product that has the concept of blurred video dating. Bumble introduced the concept of blurred images when you send a photo inside of a chat. So again, the concepts are starting to be implemented throughout our industry. But let me tell you what we're doing here at S'more. So S'more stands for something more. And something more is the #1 term that people use when they give feedback on dating apps. S'more also represents a layered cookie, getting to know all the layers of a person, sandwiched into the equality sign, so it's for everyone. And it's held together by a chat icon or a marshmallow, which essentially shows you that communication is the key to any relationship and conversation. So our brand ethos literally is you deserve something more than what you've seen on other apps, and you deserve a real relationship and conversations. And as an example, we don't have a single feature that's anti-superficial. Our entire approach to getting people to connect is one that's 100% rooted in not judging a book by its cover. So on S'more, you won't see race filters, you won't see age filters, you won't see structured profiles. The vast majority of dating apps, I think every single one that I've ever worked for or seen, uses very structured profiles. Now, structured profiles are great. It looks very organized and clean, but human beings pay attention to what is visually different. So the only visual difference between two profiles is the image on top, which is your headshot. That's what you're going to focus on. If you have unstructured profiles a la MySpace, which I hope some of you used, it was, for those of you who are youngins on the call, MySpace was a very popular social media site 10 years ago or more. But what was cool about MySpace was that your space and MySpace did not feel like the same space. So it allowed for this sort of discovery mechanic to emerge, where I could listen to your voice, listen to your favorite music, and your profile had different colors and different fonts. That is the way that S'more is actually structured today. We also have 100% verified profiles. We also rate your behavior. So we are building up an app where every single feature was intentional to get you into a relationship in a way that doesn't have you judge a book by its cover. And again, that is the core ethos of S'more. Now, what are the results from an anti-superficial approach? I will tell you, it is by far a much more engaging approach than a typical swipe app. So on S'more, as an example, the conversation lengths on S'more are about 2 times what the industry average is. In addition to that, the stickiness factor, how many people come back per day versus how many people come back to your app per month, is also significantly higher than a typical swiping app. Retention also extremely high. And in the case of S'more, we were named the #2 best dating app in the US by Ask Men, and our app is only 8 months old. We're also a top 10 dating app by Mary Claire. On S'more, you will find 100% of people have verified profiles and 100% people have completed profiles. 92% of people have a behavioral score that is 4 or above. Why is that important? Because as we know as an industry, men typically don't behave very well on dating apps. And unless you keep people accountable for their actions, you are going to have a tainted environment and ecosystem. So we make sure that we have a behavioral score, which is the first thing you see even before you see the image of a person, and many more features as well. The concept of less superficial dating actually is not an American-centric ideology or approach. It's one that's very international, which I'm very happy and excited to share with you guys today, because it's been very hard for a lot of the swiping apps to transition to more international markets, especially those that are conservative, because showing a lot of skin or focusing on image is really against their culture. So when you have an anti-superficial approach, when you hide images at the beginning and you connect on the soul of the person, it actually translates much better to countries like India, the Middle East, Africa, and even China. So as you think about how to develop anti-superficial features and practices, understand that it's going to really help you as you extend your brand internationally. So what kind of features can you develop and really have people connect on more than a transactional approach, right? Transactional means once I find my person, I'm off your app, versus community, which is, yes, I can use your app to find someone special, but even if I have that someone special there, I can still meet people in more indirect ways. These are some really good examples of indirectly connecting people in a romantic sort of environment like a dating app. So multiplayer games, so trivia games between two people. That's a very good way of getting to know one another. Chat rooms, news feeds, forums, and other shareable content that people can interact and react to are great ways of starting new relationships. So on S'more, users report finding a compatible match in 50% less time than on a casual app. So on typical casual apps, the average user is spending 2 to 3 years finding someone on those apps. So think about what that means for the time spent there. And also think about the fact that we're not just trying to get people connected and leave our ecosystem. We're trying to get people connected and stay on our ecosystem. There should be other ways for people to connect, even if you're in a relationship, to meet new people. And finally, the industry, I hope I didn't paint a very gloomy picture of the industry. Our industry is in hyper growth mode. Dating is not mature. Last year, as eMarketer reported a few weeks ago, our industry increased over 18% in 1 year, and over 23% of American users are willing to pay for dating app features, whether it's a subscription or in-app purchases. If you think about the early days of dating, and Jeff Cook knows as well, back at Meet Me when I worked there, it was 100% advertising. You could not get a person to pay for any part of that app or any part of any app. Today, people are willing to put their money where their mouth is and invest more in these great experiences, which is a huge positive. And remember, this is not coming from me. Michelle Obama literally said this yesterday on her podcast, that you cannot Tinder yourself into a long-term relationship. Guys and girls, it takes a lot of work, but let's create apps that actually facilitate these deeper connections so that we can fulfill the promise that we set out to do. And finally, I will leave you with a quick snapshot of what S'more looks like, and also tell all of you to check out S'more Live Happy Hour. As also Jeff mentioned, video and celebrity is a very important part of our industry. And S'more started its own celebrity dating show on Instagram, which has become wildly successful. And it's a very important part of also brand creation. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and I really appreciate being here.